Hi everyone, Sailor Moon here, Serena here, and today we're going to talk about, the hate that the Deke Sailor Moon gets from the Sailor Moon followership. I've talked about this many times, but at the end of the day I can still not really understand how it got so much hate, or why so many folks in the Sailor Moon followership seem to hate the Deke Sailor Moon. Now, a lot of folks out there will say it has to do with all of the cleaning and the skimming and the shifting that went on. And they'll say, oh, well, a lot of folks hate it since the Dawnish borrowed names were shifted out for Latinist, Frenchish, Spanish, or even Hellenish or Hebrewish or Farsius or Blacklandish borrowed names that folks speaking English would have borrowed more of. Now, if that is true, that was the hatred spawn came from that, then that would have been a small thing. Because many drawing shows and drawing films from Dawnland had names shifted around. Sailor Moon wasn't the first. Get out, there's a fly after me. I don't understand it. Sailor Moon was not the first, or soon to be the last, or the first drawing show to ever, get out of here. Leave me alone. There's a fly around me. Oh, leave me alone. Now, wasn't the first drawing show from Dawnland, and wouldn't be the last to ever have it done. Stop it. But anyway, a lot of folks out there seem to truly believe that it is the worstest thing out there. Stop it. A lot of folks out there seem to think that is the worstest thing that was ever done to it, and behave as if it was the first drawing show or drawing film from Dawnland to have borrowed names shifted out for other borrowed names. Now, if that was true, oh, fuck it. Leave me alone. There's a fly after me and won't leave me alone. Stop it. Hey. Now, it wouldn't have been the first or the last to have that done. Now, if it was the only show that was ever done to, then yeah, there would have been room for scathing that. But it wasn't the first show that ever had that kind of thing done. The next thing that a lot of folks tend to either hate about it or overplay the hatred of it happens to be, strike names being shifted. I mean, they make a big deal about strike names being shifted, but keep in mind, the strike names were not only being shifted, were not only shifted by, Deke, but then Pioneer would later on shift out the strike names too. Now, I don't know if there were other drawing shows or drawing films that was done to, but in Sailor Moon, that may have been true. That may have been true for Sailor Moon. I don't know about others. But was that really a big thing to bitch about? At the end of the day, was that really something to hate the Deke Sailor Moon over? Other folks out there seem to also make a big deal out of other things that they really should not make a big deal out of, like stead names being shifted. Now, once again, near names being shifted, yeah, I think very few folks would know every single near name in Dawnland unless you went there, unless you lived there, or you went there on business, or you lived there yourself. Then you might know a lot more to near names than someone who's never been there before. So making a big thing about that, well, at the end of the day, I don't really think it was a big deal to make a big name out of that. But some folks out there thought it was something to make a big deal out of. Some folks truly believed that that should have been a big deal, to make a big deal out of that. And there's a fly keeps going around me, I understand it. So, to make a big deal out of that, I don't understand it. Now, the next thing that folks make a big deal out of, well, if it wasn't that, is the folks that did the speaking for they apparently, some folks out there apparently didn't think that the folks speaking for them, the show players, I guess you call it the speaking show players, I guess, they didn't think they did a good work speaking for them. Now, I don't know what they thought they were going to get back in the day. I don't know what they thought. If they thought they were going to get Dawnlandish English, the way of English spoken in Dawnland by some folks. But what they got was, Settlelander English, 4-1 Reichs English. And I don't understand why that was a big deal. Did they not want it to? So they made a big deal about it being in English, or said that those weren't how they thought the folks should talk like. Well, I don't know what they thought the folks should talk like, because it was the first time that Sailor Moon ever been put into English, so I don't know what they thought they would tone like in English. What they would speak like in English, I don't know. Now, there are some other things in the Sailor Moon Deke one that some folks make a big deal out of, but they should not make a big deal, but they do, is, now, I'm going to get it now. We got some, now in Sailor Moon, there were some unstraight folks. But in the first following of Sailor Moon, you only had to deal with Zoisite and Malachite, which in every other take of Sailor Moon, I guess, they were unstraight. Well, not in the books, though. Not in the funny books. Not in the books that Naoko Takiguchi drew and wrote. And not in the live film the live show that Toei made. But not in the film games. But in the first drawing show that Toei made, yeah, they were. And a lot of folks thought that it was wrong for Deke to shift Zoisite into a woman. Now, at the time when Sailor Moon had come out, there was this belief or a mindset about making films or shows or plays for children, that was one thing. But if someone was unstraight in it, it was seen as, we can't do this. Now, I don't know what Andy Hayward thought of that, but apparently he must have thought that some folks would watch Sailor Moon with their children, UPN, WB, I don't know, and they would, and YTV, and they would think, I don't want my children watching Sailor Moon because I saw two unstraight men. Even though they really didn't do anything wrong to say, okay, yeah, they were heels, yes, they were the evildoers, yes, but it wasn't like and I guess Andy Hayward was frightened that some of these folks might choose to call up UPN or WB or YTV and say, I don't want you to have the Dawnish Drawling Show Sailor Moon on your folk work because it got unstraight folks in it, and I think it's wrong. Whatever the grounds was, Andy Hayward told someone to fish Zoisite into a woman, and how Zoisite became a woman was getting a woman to speak for him, Kirsten Bishop, who is no longer with us anymore, but she worked for Deacon later and Pioneer later on too. And she was the one who did the speaking for Zoisite, so they would see her as a woman, which in a Deke world Zoisite is. Now, a lot of folks have made a big thing about that and said that it was kind-hating, it was shaming of anyone who was unstraight. I don't know if it was or was not. I'm just telling you why it happened. I don't know why they did it. I'm not saying it was right for them to do it, but I'm just saying it happened, and I'm just making guesses of why it was done. Now, if that was the last thing they would bitch about, yeah, some of the sagas of Sailor Moon's first following were skipped over. Some of them for many grounds. Some because of either the fighting in it or what some South may have said or did. And it also made a big deal about the Day of Destiny, Day of Calling, which when Sailor Moon, which in Viz's world and Toei's world, it was three sagas broken down into two. And it made a big deal about that. Now, at the end of the day, but they also hated the two following of Sailor Moon 2. Need be for the same grounds that they hated the first one for. Now, at the end of the day, the hatred of Sailor Moon Steak one, and I did skip over one following and the two following a Sailor Moon where Rini happens to befriend a deadweight. But anyway, beyond that, they really, a lot of folks hated it for all kinds of things. Didn't like the songs they did. Didn't like the shifting around. They didn't like the songs they did. They made a big deal about Sailor Says. Yeah, they did. See, back in the day, from the 9 between 80s until the 9 between 90 YLs, there was this oversight which was set by the FCC at the time that said that you had to have learning shows on your folk work. So every folk work had to do some kind of learning, and so that's why Hasbro and Deke had to throw those outlets, outless helping speeches. That's why Jim did it. That's why G.I. Joe's did it. That's why even Popeye would go on to do it. And that's why Sonic and Sailor Moon had to do it. Now, at the end of the day, the Deke one is a mix. It's half, because some folks like it, some folks don't like it. And for some folks in the 4-1 Reichs in the Settler land, it was the first time they ever saw Sailor Moon. That's it. We'll see you later.